You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Hi, I'm Jay Farner, CEO of Quicken Loans, America's largest mortgage lender. Spring will be here soon, so if buying a new home is on your to-do list, right now is the time to call Quicken Loans. Learn about which mortgage options make sense for you and get a jump on your competition. With our exclusive Rate Shield approval, the low rate you lock today is protected for up to 90 days while you shop for your new home. With a Rate Shield approval, if rates go up, your low rate stays locked. But if rates go down, you get that new, even lower rate. Either way, you win. Talk to us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com to take advantage. Here's another great reason to work with us. For a record 9 years in a row, J.D. Power has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, to lock in today's low mortgage interest rate and get the security of our exclusive Rate Shield approval, call us today at 800-QUICKEN or go to rocketmortgage.com.
For J.D. Power award information, visit jdpower.com. Rate Shield approval only valid on certain 30-year fixed-rate loans. Call for cost information and conditions. Equal housing lender. License in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Hi, welcome to this Subway ad for the new Sesame Ginger Glazed Chicken Signature Wrap. How would you like it?
I'll take a...
Sports announcer at home?
Yeah, how'd you...
We just know.
My wife picks up the new Signature Wrap. It's got double the rotisserie-style chicken mixed with a sesame ginger glaze. She appears annoyed at me, but she shrugs it off. Those sweet and savory flavors are calling her name. She lifts the wrap and she takes the bite! Incredible! And now she's closing the door on my... Subway, make it what you want.
Limited time only at participating restaurants. Double meat based on average 6-inch sub.
I'm little teapot, short and stout.
Here is my handle and here is my spout.
No, Dad, like this. When I get all steamed up, then I shout, tip me over and pour me out.
This is WWE superstar Roman Reigns. It only takes a moment to make a moment. Take time to be a dad today.
Visit fatherhood.gov, brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
I'm Alan Ray, and I do this for free.
It's the refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else.
Some of you have written in suggesting that I'm a whack job. I'm just an ordinary average guy. My friends all are boring, and so am I. We're just ordinary average guys. It's just the normal noises in you. Ordinary average
Here's your host, Alan Ray, and he does this for free.
We have found the witch. May we burn her? How do you know she is a witch? She looks like one. Bring her forward.
I'm not a witch. I'm not a witch.
But you are dressed as one.
They dressed me up like this. And this isn't my nose. It's a false one.
Well, we did do the nose. The nose? And the hat. But she's a witch. Did you dress her up like this? No. Yes. A bit. She has got a wart. What makes you think she's a witch? Well, she turned me into a newt. A newt? I got better. Burn her anyway! What? There are ways of telling whether she is a witch. Are there? Oh, what are they? Tell me, what do you do with witches? Burn them! What do you burn apart from witches? 4 witches! Wood! So, why do witches burn? Because they're made of wood? Good! So, how do we tell whether she is made of wood? Build a bridge out of her. Ah, but can you not also make bridges out of stone? Oh, yeah. Does a wood sink in water? No, it floats. It floats over into the pond. What also floats in water? Bread. Apples. Very small rocks. Cider. Gravy. Cherries. Mud. Churches. Lead. A duck. Exactly. So, logically, if she weighs the same as a duck, she's made of wood. And therefore... A witch! Very good. We should use my larger scales.
Ah, yes. Sir Belvedere the Wise, otherwise known as Terry Jones, passing away this week at the age of 77. He was diagnosed with dementia a few years ago, back in 2015, and it attacked quick, it attacked hard, and quite honestly, by the time he passed away, he didn't even recognize the rest of the Monty Python troupe. I'm Alan Ray. This is the refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else, and I do this for free, not a penny paid. And, you know, instead of mourning the death of Terry Jones this week, of Monty Python fame, I guess we should be celebrating it. I guess we should, he really had an impact on comedy and on the way we see ourselves, on the way we see everything. Very controversial figure. Helped co-produce and co-direct Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which is one of my favorite movies. He was the sole director in 1979's Life of Brian, which was hugely controversial, and we'll discuss that a little more as we go on. And he also was the sole director of Monty Python's Meaning of Life, which all three are in my DVD collection, and they will stay there forever because they are such good movies. You can never, every time I watch any one of those three movies, I squeeze just a little more humor, something that I didn't catch the first 500 times I've watched it, out of it. And it's kind of crazy because I started watching, the first time I seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail was in 1984 when I went to college. And we all congregated over at this girl's house who I eventually dated for a little while, but she had the VHS tape. Yes, I'm old, of Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and we sat and watched it. And we laughed hysterically. In fact, we ended up going there almost every weekend for a while and watching it until I think her mom got sick of us and threw us all out. But Terry Jones, and this is something that is important to me. And understanding what happened to Terry Jones, the dementia, the sort of dementia he had was called primary progressive aphasia. And primary progressive aphasia is a condition that slowly damages parts of the brain that control speech, language, the ability to bring up a word that you're looking for to describe something. People with this primary progressive aphasia, they usually have difficulty speaking or naming objects or understanding conversations. And this showed Terry Jones won a Lifetime Achievement Award just a few years ago. And it had progressed so badly by that time that he couldn't even say thank you for the award. I believe it was his son standing next to him actually accepted the award and spoke in his behalf, even though he was standing there. And to understand what happened to him, the type of aphasia it begins gradually. And you might notice you have speech or language symptoms varying depending on the areas that's affected by this disease. And for example, some people may initially have trouble producing speech, whereas in some other variants, the word finding and comprehension problems are more pronounced. This might be what I have. It seems like lately, I just sit here and struggle for words. It's like, ugh. But who knows? But these syndromes, they result from underlying disease, but it's mostly located in the front temporal lobe. And it's a type of Alzheimer's disease, really, but there's really no cure for it. You can go through therapy. They can help rewire some of your brain to prolong your ability to talk, your ability to carry on a conversation. But in the end, just like a lot of other dementia, your brain shuts down. It attacks your whole brain. Your brain shuts down, and you pass. And it's sad. It really is kind of a sad week. Number one, Monty Python is very special to me. There will never, ever be another Monty Python. And if you're anywhere near my age or even younger, now thank you to YouTube and video sources where you can go watch back episodes of the Monty Python's Flying Circus. You can watch all these movies and everything. But to be there closer to when they did all of this, when they were live, and going on BBC and coming up with these movies, to be closer to when this happened, it was a very special time. And it's sad that Terry Jones, when he passed, probably had little to no recollection of the impact that he had on comedy, on people my age, especially's life. I mean, there's some things that happen, and you look at them, and you automatically go into a Monty Python type, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, or something like that. When a bird dies, you can't help but go into the parrot skit. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, just go on YouTube and Google them. They're hysterical, especially if you're into British humor. And it's a sad yet bittersweet type of week because really, he was 77 years old, led a pretty long life. But now, just remembering the impact he had on the humor world, the impact he had on life in general. And a lot of people, if you're not really a huge Monty Python fan, when they came out with The Life of Brian, it really caused a stir, especially in the Catholic Church, but in religion as a whole, in the Christian religion as a whole. I didn't see it that way. And if you listen to some of the interviews, especially with Jones and Terry Gilliam and John Cleese, they talk about this, and they all said the same thing. It's like, we were going to actually do a funny movie about Jesus Christ. And we studied the New Testament. We read the scriptures over and over. And what came of it is he was a straight up guy. And Terry Jones, in his humor, he goes, the only thing he did that, he attacked a fig tree, and fig trees didn't care for him much, and the hogs didn't care for him much. Of course, if you read the Bible, you know that he cast demons into a herd of swine, and they all ran into the ocean. But he said it kind of tongue in cheek. But they weren't poking fun at Jesus because they said they studied the scriptures, and they said he was a pretty straight up guy. He meant what he said. He didn't do anything that you could really roll your eyes at. And they couldn't find much humor in what he did because, everything he said was a great idea. So what they did was they just came up with this guy, and they used Brian because if you are a fan of Monty Python, they've done a couple of skits where the name Brian comes up, and they associate the name. And if your name is Brian, don't take this the wrong way, but they associate Brian with your every ordinary, everyday, ordinary type person who may or may not really be on the ball. And that's kind of what Brian was. And he finds himself accidentally, during the time of Jesus, people mistaking him for a Messiah. And he has to spend the whole movie trying to convince them he's not. Very great movie. Very great movie. And then, there's, if you're really offended easy, there's some things you could consider sacrilege, but I don't think they meant it in that direction. I think they meant it more of people are so prone to not studying what they believe in, just accepting it. And you have to have faith. I'm a Christian. I have faith, but I also read. I also trust man. Man is fallible. Man is, anytime a human being puts their opinion or anything else into the world, and there's a chink in the armor, there's a fallibility to it. And instead of actually verifying and seeing if things are true, people just, fall into problems and end up in cults, end up with the Jim Jones type things and all. And I'm not going to preach about it, but The Life of Brian is one of those movies that's what happens. This guy is mistaken for a Messiah, and people follow him, and he loses a sandal, and half of the people are worshiping his sandal. The other half are worshiping some other object that he had. And it just shows you that, how something can turn silly really quick to outsiders, but these people are taking it all seriously. So, it was taken the wrong way by a lot of the religious sect. I didn't take it the wrong way. Also, the meaning of life. Meaning of life is probably next to the Holy Grail was one of my favorites. And it addresses every issue from being born all the way up till death. Absolutely hysterical. I've watched that one almost as many times as I've watched the Holy Grail. Great stuff. Great movies. Sad week about Terry Jones. But also, we need to celebrate what he did. He set the example. He lived his life. He did his thing. He made people laugh. He was charming. He was funny, extremely intelligent. Some of his humor is so subtle, and some of the things that he produced and he wrote were so subtle that you don't catch them until one day you're just, thinking, and all of a sudden it hits you. You think about a scene in a movie, or you catch it again for the 50th time, and you start laughing. You go, I didn't notice that before. It took me several times of watching The Holy Grail to realize that when Sir Belvedere the Wise, when they first flash to him, he's tying a coconut onto a sparrow and throwing it. And that's a running joke throughout the entire movie, is the wing velocity of a sparrow, and do coconuts migrate? You got to watch it. And if you don't watch Monty Python, we can't be friends. No, I'm just kidding. We can still be friends, but I will doubt you most of the time. Anyway, Terry Jones had primary progressive aphasia, which is a really rare and bad form of dementia. And the illness basically just took him away from the rest of the Pythons mentally, where he didn't even recognize them. And it's sad. It's a sad day. He was a good friend, especially to John Cleese and a couple of the others, the troops that are still pretty active. So, remember them. Go watch some Monty Python Flying Circus videos and stuff. Good stuff. Great stuff. I am Alan Ray. This is a refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else. Well, we got a lot to talk about today, so you know what? Let's get it going. Elon Musk is living the dream. He really is. If you're following SpaceX like I do, they've had a really big last couple of weeks. They actually And I'm very jealous of this. According to CNET in January 19th, 2020, their SpaceX launch, I hope you got a chance to watch this on YouTube or whatever, or live. I subscribe to SpaceX's site. So when stuff like this happens, I get this notification, and if I'm available, if I'm able to, I watch it. It's a blast. They intentionally blew up a rocket last week. How fun is that? Basically what they did was the intentional rocket failure was the goal, and SpaceX hit the mark in spectacular fashion on Sunday. The Crew Dragon in-flight abort test set out to prove astronauts could safely escape in the spacecraft in case of a launch emergency. Now, SpaceX launched the Falcon 9 rocket with an uncrewed Crew Dragon capsule from Kennedy Space Center. Now, they did have some crash test dummies in there with sensors and all that. And the Crew Dragon capsule separated from the Falcon 9 about 80 seconds after takeoff, got clear of the rocket, reoriented itself by firing thrusters, and then took a parachute ride down to the Atlantic Ocean and landed safely. Both NASA and SpaceX live streamed the event. Now, the used Falcon 9 rocket didn't survive the test intact. SpaceX had expected the Falcon 9 to break up and trigger a fireball of some sort. The rocket delivered on its promise. The entire test appeared to go exactly as planned. In other words, it got 80 seconds into this thing, and if you watch it, they launched the capsule off the top of it, okay? And basically a lot of sensors, whatever, what have you, and it's controlled, I don't know if it's controlled by sensors on the ground that people are monitoring and say, hey, we got to get this thing off there, or what have you. But if you're my age and you watch the first space shuttle, actually both space shuttle incidents where one of them blew up on takeoff and another one of them disintegrated on entry, both very sad occasions. But the first one was stunning to the entire nation. We sat there and watched in horror as this thing launched, and later to find out, much later, that the crew was probably awake and aware as this thing was crashing, as this thing was coming down and hitting the ocean so hard that it killed them. Sad. Well, what this does, and if you're looking at this rocket, it's got these basically jets on four sides of it. And when they launched it, it took off 80 seconds into it. You could see this thing all of a sudden just come off the top of it in a ball of jet flame, launch safely far away from this thing as the rest of the rocket blows up. Now, this is yet another example of what I've been talking about. And if you listen to this show and you have been paying attention to this show, number one, thank you so much. And number two, it just goes to show you that we are taking steps, more and more steps, to not only make better, more efficient, cheaper ways to get to space, but safer, a lot safer. We're taking all this stuff into consideration. The first astronauts, the Apollo mission, Gemini mission, all that stuff, they knew there was a heavy risk involved. I mean, you were strapping yourself onto tons of propellant and launching yourself at high G into space. That whole concept in and of itself, you have to realize there's a lot of risk. Well, Elon Musk, SpaceX, has just cut that risk in half. Now, things can still go wrong. You still can have problems. You can still, if it all just blows up unexpectedly and you don't know what's happening, there's not a lot you can do about it. There's still risk involved. There's always risk. There's risk when you fly an airplane. There's risk when you step outside. There's risk when you go for a drive. In fact, I think there's more risk when you go for a drive, a lot more risk. But we're taking steps, slowly but surely, to make it a little less risky to get to space and to get back to the moon and maybe even go to Mars. Well, if we have our way, we will go to Mars someday. So, hurrah for SpaceX. They're doing a great job. We love this stuff. And I know this is a nerd fest. It surely is. But to watch this launch, to watch what he's doing, watch what's going on, working with NASA, I think they found the magic formula. And SpaceX isn't by any means the only, company that's working with NASA, trying to develop these rockets, safer rides to the moon, safer rides to space. They're utilizing more companies and letting the companies come up with the technology instead of NASA demanding, well, this is what has to happen. These companies are saying, we're accountable for every dollar. We're accountable for our, to our stockholders, to stakeholders, to everybody. And they're realizing that these people are coming up with bigger, better, cheaper, more efficient, safer ways to do what NASA can't. NASA's restricted by politics. So it's getting interesting. It really is. It's an exciting time to be alive. One of the reasons I hope to live to be 100, I'd like to be like my grandpa on my mom's side, and the things he saw. He was born in the late 1800s. He got to see the first airplanes, the first cars. He got to see us go to the moon. And it was interesting to him. I would go over there sometimes and he would be catching up on all this stuff, and he was enthralled. He was fascinated. Can you even imagine being born just before the 1900s and watching this leap in technology that we had during the 1900s? I mean, you think about it, starting in just about the roaring 20s and maybe even a little bit before, it started really during the Civil War. They started coming up with a lot of machines and things like that. But it really took off in the early 1900s with the development of the airplane, the car, and those two things along with trains that we had even in the 1800s and all that, really began the technology boom. And here we are living in 2020. And a lot of people, you always have the doomsayers. You always have the people, the world's going to blow up, yada, yada. I beg to differ. We have at our disposal some of the best, coolest technology. We have the knowledge of the world right in the palm of our hands via your smartphone. And more people are getting this stuff. More and more people are getting this. And it's up to you and I, dear listener, to promote the use of this technology to educate ourselves and not just take pictures of our food and duck-faced selfies. Now, yeah, I'm preaching again, but hey, you know what? Get used to it because that's what I do. But anyway, we live in a great time, and it's getting better and better all the time. Yes, we still have a long way to go. We still have a lot of fights to fight. We still haven't cured some diseases, but we're getting close. And every time I read articles, journals, medical journals about how we're, using technology, using the things at our disposal to fight things like dementia and to get ourselves into space and to cure diseases that have plagued us, well, it gives me encouragement. We get negative and unfortunately this show started off on kind of a negative downer note, but it was also kind of funny too, because you can't sit there and listen to Sir Belvedere go through his sense of logic that a witch weighs the same as a duck, therefore they're made of wood and you can burn them. But there again, Monty Python, they were pointing out that, early logic wasn't very logical. And it wasn't. It really wasn't. So, yeah, we do what we do with technology, and we have to bring the rest of the masses up. It's not a good idea to bring everybody down to the lowest common denominator. It's a better idea to attempt to bring as many people up as you can to bring public awareness and public conscience up, public education up. That's how you really cure things like inner city blight and crime and murders and things like that, is by bringing the education level up. Now, enough preaching. We are almost at the bottom of the hour. When we come back, we have some pretty interesting stuff. And one of the things we're going to have to look at, and I feel it's a public service, is we're going to look at this new coronavirus that's going on that is now in America from China. And let's look at what it is. And, a few other goodies and gizmos and gadgets. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. We're going to have a lot of fun.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq. Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now. 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Tired of paying outrageous prices for Viagra? Well, we have great news for you. Now you can finally get Viagra at huge discounts. Healthy Man allows you to save up to $500 on Viagra. Why pay U.S. pharmacy prices of $15 per pill or more when you can get Viagra for less than $3 a pill? Call today and get 40 Viagra pills for only $99. This can cost as much as $600 at your local pharmacy. You can't afford not to call us. If you want Viagra at the lowest prices, never pay $15 a pill pharmacy prices again. Get Viagra for less than $3 a pill. Call 1-800-516-7602 today and save up to $500 and get 40 pills for just $99. Healthy Man is fast, easy, and affordable. Operators are waiting at 1-800-516-7602 to take your call right now. Call 1-800-516-7602. That's 1-800-516-7602. Again, 1-800-516-7602.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
All right, we are back. I'm Alan Ray. This is the Refreshingly Non-Political Podcast about everything else, and I do this for free. Nope, not a dime paid to me. Hey, guess what? Are you a Spotify subscriber? You can get I do this for free on just about any flipping place that does any podcast whatsoever. You can listen to this break on KLRNradio.com, where liberty and reason still reign. And they're getting the new website up. They're getting the new chat feature up. You can still, and when this drops, I'm in the chat room while this is dropping. And you can, if you're on Spreaker, the original Spreaker, you can hit the chat feature at 10 p.m. on Friday nights. And there'll probably be one or two or more people in the chat room screwing around having a good time. That being said, you can also find me on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher. I mean, there's a whole list. Just about anything that does collective podcasts, I'm on. It's amazing. I'm like an infestation, you know? But back to Spotify. Let's talk about Spotify for just a moment. Spotify, and this is according to Reuters, has launched a playlist for dogs left at home. A smartphone, let's see, and oh, well, here we go. Spotify has made playlists and a podcast for dogs to listen to in their owner's absence after finding that nearly 74% of UK pet owners play music for their animals. The Swedish audio streaming business company said it has launched a podcast featuring soothing music, dog-directed praise stories, and messages of affirmation and reassurance narrated by actors to alleviate stress for dogs who are home alone. Meanwhile, playlists aimed at pets offer tracks selected by algorithms to match pets' characteristics, such as energetic or slow. Spotify said that it found a survey that 1 in 4 pet owners played music for their pets to listen to for company when they are away from home, with 42% of owners saying their pets have a favorite type of music. A quarter of pet owners said they have never seen their pets dancing to music. So, I read this and I started to think, what are some songs that you can, put on this playlist? And I came up with some of them, and if they're not out there, you need to, you musicians, I'm a musician, maybe I should start writing some of these. Maybe I should put out an album just for your dog. And get some titles like Sit, or Who's a Good Boy, or You Want a Treat? My dog's outside of the studio right now going nuts, I'm sure, because this is all her favorite titles. How about the rock anthem for dogs? Tug of War All Night, Sleep All Day. Or that punk rock song, Get Off That Couch. Or we could do that, Frank Sinatra style, Let's Go for a Walk. All on the Spotify doggy playlists. Truth be told, I don't leave music or anything like that on for the dog. I have, taken short jaunts and have just left the TV going. My dog's more of a TV girl than she is anything else. She enjoys music. I had a dog before the one I have now, before Ava dog. I had Jake the Blues Beagle, and Jake was a fat, slightly crippled beagle. He had an accident, broke his leg, and he never could walk very well. But he loved when I would either play music or put music on the radio, especially blues. He would close his eyes and he would almost be like a smile on his face. So he was a music dog. He liked music. And I think if I just put some Buddy Guy or B.B. King or some kind of a blues playlist for Jake the Blues Beagle, he would have been fine with that. I'm very sure he would have been fine with that. But I don't know. Doggy affirmation and things to make your dog happy. I guess there's going to have to be an animal psychology study on this. Does it work? Because if it does, maybe I should subscribe to this. Maybe I should, I've got a Spotify account. Maybe I should just let it go all day. Although I have heard, and I don't know if this is right or not, but I have heard that dogs don't like to watch those videos so they can get the next 30 minutes ad-free. We'll have to see. This one is going to take some research, folks. I can't just buy into this automatically. Moving on to a little more serious note. The first case of this coronavirus from China has hit the United States. A person in Washington state is infected with what they call the Wuhan coronavirus. It's a mysterious respiratory infection that has killed at least 6 people and sickened hundreds more in Asia. Now, the patient who's hospitalized with pneumonia last week recently had traveled to Wuhan, China, where the outbreak appears to have originated, federal officials have found out. Now, this is according to the Boston.com. Governments are stepping up surveillance of airline passengers arriving from the affected area to try to prevent the virus from spreading. Here's what you should know about the illness. Scientists have identified it as a kind of coronavirus. Now, there are many known types of coronaviruses. Some cause the common cold, others are found in bats, camels, and other animals, and they have evolved into more severe illnesses such as severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, or MERS, which is Middle East Respiratory Syndrome. These are all coronaviruses. Now, why do they call it coronavirus? Well, corona is Latin, basically in Latin, translates to a halo. And when you look at these virus, the virus under a microscope, there's like a halo around it. So they call it a coronavirus. Now, this new virus was found late last month in the city of Wuhan in central China, apparently at a food market. So if it's at a food market, if it's at a place where a lot of people have it, and you have to also take into consideration that for every reported incident, there's probably quite a few that people just go home and say, well, I'm really sick, and they wait it out, and some of them die. And those might be found out. A lot of them don't die, get better, and they're never found out. So this could be a lot more serious than what they're talking about. But about 300 cases have already been identified. There are about 260 cases in Wuhan. And if you get the news coming out of Wuhan, China, it's sad, it's unfortunate to see, but these people are afraid. They have been quarantined and they're terrified, and they're already, like, if somebody dies from it, there's reports of people burning these people's houses down so, it doesn't spread. The symptoms include a runny nose, headache, cough, and fever. Shortness of breath, chills, and body aches are associated with more dangerous kind of coronavirus, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Now, these coronaviruses can be spread through coughing or sneezing or by touching an infected person. Initially, authorities in China said there was no evidence of human-to-human transmission in the present outbreak, but an expert panel has concluded that there have been at least a few cases of people catching it from others, raising the possibility that it could spread more widely. Now, could it be as bad as SARS? Well, so far the virus appears to be less dangerous and infectious than SARS, which also started in China and killed about 800 people. As of Tuesday, 6 deaths have been reported, all in Wuhan. So we're not, in the end times and going to all die from this coronavirus. But the viruses can mutate into more dangerous and contagious forms, but it's too early to say what will happen with this one. They are on it. The CDC is on it. They're taking every precaution. You yourself, and this is just public knowledge, public health, and I have a string of shows. If you listen to me enough, and I'm a musician. Right now I'm doing an acoustic duet with a guitar player, my friend Rick. And I have a string of shows pretty much going from now until April. And in those string of shows, I'm trying to stay really healthy. But you can do what I'm doing and try to stay healthy. Still might get you, but you can reduce the odds quite a bit of getting any kind of a virus, any kind of a cold, any kind of things like this. Wash your hands. Wash your hands a lot. And sanitize them a few times a day if you're not doing that so far. Now, I've heard don't sanitize too often because that can have the opposite effect. That could actually do damage to you. But about a couple times a day, use a hand sanitizer, especially if you have been in a highly trafficked area having to touch a lot of things. If you take public transportation and you've had to sit in a seat and grab a hold of a rail or something like that, when you get off that bus or that train or whatever you're using, go wash your hands and use a hand sanitizer. That will cut the risks down exponentially. Stay healthy. Sleep right. Eat right. Eat healthy foods. Get exercise. Get fresh air. Big one, get fresh air. Bundle up. Go out into the cold if you live in a wintry area like I do here in the cornfields of southeastern Michigan, and get fresh air. Get that into your system. All of these things add up, and they will reduce the risk of actually getting these. Now, you still may get them. You know, there's no cure for being hit by a bus. It just decreases the odds of you getting some kind of virus. I have been pretty much almost the germaphobe level for the past few months, ever since before Christmas. My wife, my mother, and my son all got this horrible virus that's been going around. Coughing, hacking. If I had to guess, I'd say it's pretty close to this Wuhan virus or whatever it is. It sounds like the same symptoms. You know, a lot of sinus drainage, a lot of cold, chills, fever. It's rough. And of course, me working on a university campus, I'm exposed to a lot of things. A whole bunch of things. So yeah, I've become a bit of a germaphobe over this whole incident. And, you know, I go into work, and this is a big thing too. If you share a computer and a phone, here's a couple of big ones. If you share a computer and a phone, well, before you touch any of it, take Clorox wipes and wipe it all down. That alone could kill a bunch of viruses that may make you sick. You know, it'll only take a few minutes, but if you share things like computers and phones and stuff like that, man, that is it right there. That is where a lot of germs really exist. Your cell phone, you know, take your cell phone and every once in a while, wipe it off with a Clorox wipe. You wouldn't believe, you know, when I went back to college, when I finally got my head out of my backside and went back to college about 10 years. Well, I graduated 10 years ago. I went back a few years before that. But I of course, you know, back in the 80s, I took chemistry, and what a stupid thing that was for me to do. And that's back before, you know, we had computers and all that stuff. And you had to calculate all your everything on a regular calculator and do all these complicated, math isn't my thing. Oh boy, I didn't do too well. So I had to take a science class, so I took biology. I should have done that back in the 80s. Biology was a blast. Man, I had a blast doing that class. But we did a germ study. And we actually found that your cell phone, the average cell phone, has more germs than a toilet seat. Ew. Yuck. So anyway, I've seen it with my own eyes. It's nasty. I mean, somebody even took a swab of the drinking fountain, and it was bad. Not nearly as bad as the cell phone swab. The cell phone swabs were just disgusting. So I've been a bit of a germaphobe ever since that happened, really. And it's kind of crazy, but you know that's me. That's me. All right, moving on. We were talking about dementia and cures and things like that, but I just ran across this one yesterday. It looks like British scientists may have found a cure for cancer, and they may have done it by accident. Now, this is from the Daily Wire, dated January 22nd. As the Telegraph reported, researchers at Cardiff University were analyzing blood from a bank in Wales, looking for immune cells that could fight bacteria when they found an entirely new type of T cell. That new immune cell carries a never-before-seen receptor, which acts like a grappling hook, latching onto most human cancers while ignoring healthy cells. What makes this new discovery so exciting is that prior therapies referred to as CAR-T, C-A-R-T, and TCR-T therapies, which use immune cells to attach to HLA molecules on cancer cells, fight cancer but are incapable of fighting solid tumors. As the Telegraph points out, HLA molecules are vary in people, but the new therapy attaches to a molecule called MR1, which does not vary in humans. It gives the chance of fighting most cancers, and additionally means people could share the treatment, allowing banks of the cells to be stored and thus be offered quickly to people suffering from the disease. Now, this is in, we just fell across something and we need to study it. So it may be a few years off. But immune cells from the new treatment have killed lung, skin, blood, colon, breast, bone, prostate, ovarian, kidney, and cervical cancer cells, the study stated. And this is directly from the study. Human leukocyte antigen, or HLA, independent T-cell mediated targeting of cancer cells would allow immune destruction of malignancies in all individuals. Here we used genome-wide CRISPR-Cas9, which means nothing to me, screening to establish that a T-cell receptor recognized and killed most human cancer types via the monomorphic MHC class I-related protein, MR1, while remaining inert to non-cancerous cells. So this new T-cell basically goes into your body, finds cancer cells, attaches to it like with a grappling hook, and breaks it up, destroys it. How cool is that? And this was all found quite by accident. So there's hope. There's hope. Cancer affects everybody. Cancer is one of these things that affect everybody. You either know somebody, have a family member, have had it yourself, and this gives you hope. Well, I hope this thing really does go into a more of a study. I hope they really can develop it, figure out what's going on with it. It's interesting. Very interesting. There again, you think about all of the cures, all of the technology, all of the things that we have quite foolishly stumbled across by accident. It's neat. It just goes to show you that, and some of this stuff, they're not even trying to find what they found. They're trying to find something completely different, especially in science labs and things like that. And all of a sudden they go, oh, hey, what's this? So there you go. We're having a good time here. We know that that the end is near for things like cancer. Now, as I've explained on this show before, they're still having a heck of a time trying to fight the common cold because there's so many variants. They can cure certain types of virus type colds, but it's an ongoing thing, and it's never going to end. We will cure diseases, and new diseases will pop up. It's inevitable. That's the way life goes. But, that's part of the human experience, is trying to improve your environment. We are one of the only species, I dare say the only species, that instead of adapting to our environment, we adapt our environment to us, giving us the ability to live in the desert and also live in Alaska, where it's 40 below zero sometime, and in the woods and in cities and all other types of places. Because we like to take our environment and create an environment that adapts itself to us. Now, I'm not talking about, the environment as in creating, the clouds above and all that stuff. I'm talking about habitats, houses, places, clothing, all of that. And we also go after the things that plague us and try to cure them. We always have. Whether it be herbs or spices or voodoo medicine back in the days, we've always tried. And it just gets more and more interesting every day. We're closing it down. But, I decided to end this show because I haven't done this in quite some time. With a this day in history type thing. Because there's some interesting things that happened on January 24th throughout history. In 1929, Colonial Charles Lindbergh had planned to leave on a 3,500-mile flight from Detroit, Michigan. He planned to travel all the way to Cape Horn, which is the southernmost tip of the continent of South America. He would then return to the East Coast. So Charles Lindbergh was in Detroit, taking off on an airplane on a 3,500-mile flight all the way down to Cape Horn on the very most southern tip of South America. Let's see. In 1935, the first canned beer was sold. The first canned beer goes on sale as Kruger Cream Ale, sold by Kruger Brewing Company of Richmond, Virginia, to the general public. Pabst was the second brewer in the same year to sell beer in cans, and the cans came with a picture of a can opener on the side with opening instructions. Canned beer, 1935, January 24th. You'll always remember that day. On the 1939, the Chile earthquake, 30,000 people were killed by a magnitude 8.3 devastating earthquake in Chillán, Chile. Let's see, what else? 1961, the divorce of Marilyn Monroe to playwright Arthur Miller is granted in Mexico, where a judge signed the decree. The grounds of divorce were listed as incompatibility. This was her third divorce, first from childhood sweetheart Jim Doherty, and second from legendary baseball star Joe DiMaggio. She got passed around more than a plate of green beans. Let's see, 1965, Winston Churchill, former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, died at the age of 90 years old. He was best known as leading his country through World War II as a great speaker and raising morale of his countrymen. Let's see, 1966 in India, Boeing 707 crashed into Mount Blanc, the highest peak of the Alps, with a loss of 117 passengers. 1980, U.S. starts selling to China. In reaction to the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan, the United States had announced plans to sell military equipment to China. The sale of this equipment would not include the purchase of weapons. The reason for the United States' decision to provide military merchandise to China was in part to a precautionary measure in case of Russian attack. Interesting. 1994, one United States telecommunication company had let go of over 16,000 employees of this year. AT&T. This was an effort to cut rising costs and upon the deregulation of the telephone communication services. In 1995, the trial started of O.J. Simpson for the murder of Nicole Brown and her friend Ronald Goldman. Isn't that something? Oh, what else we got here? Oh, in 2013, the U.S. ends ban on women in combat. Isn't that something else? So, all right. There you have it. That's our show. You've learned something a little more than what you knew before you started this. It is my hopes and my dreams that you have. And I'd like to thank you for spending this hour with me. It's been a blast. It really has. And, go look into some of this stuff for yourself. Remember, if you have a dog, you have a cat, I don't know, maybe it'll do them good to kick on some music. And Spotify is always your friend. You got that dog-friendly Who's a Good Boy playlist. Get on it. Come up with your own titles. I don't know. I've even read studies that if you have an access to recording, record your own voice. Maybe that's what I should do to Ava girl. My dog Ava. She's my sweetheart. Maybe I should just take all of my podcasts, string them in a row, and just have hours of it. And when I get home, I'll probably have a crazy dog. She'll be foaming at the mouth and biting at me and everything else. I'm Alan Ray. Stay tuned for Juxtaposition with Ordy and Rick on KLRNradio.com, where liberty and reason still reign. We're having fun. It's Friday night, a non-political Friday night, if you're catching this live. So stay tuned. Have fun. We will talk again in about 2 weeks, or if so inclined and you want your political kick, Hardcore Patriot will be next week, and it's going to be a doozy because I'm already right in the middle of planning that one. Thank you for spending time with me. I'm Alan Ray. This is the refreshingly non-political podcast about everything else, and I do this for free. We'll talk again soon.